All right, it's that time of year again. The best, and let's be honest, sometimes the most disappointing week for any watch fan. Watches and wonders. It's when all the big brands show their hands and we all get ready to either have our minds blown or, be a little let down. But either way, it's always a show.
But this year feels a little different. There are some huge question marks hanging over the whole thing. We've got massive anniversaries coming up, new bosses at some of the most important brands, and just this general feeling of uncertainty in the air. It really feels like this is going to be a pivotal week for the entire watch world.
So we're going to break down the four biggest stories, the four biggest questions really, that are shaping everything. We're talking about a family showdown, a potential new chapter for the titans of the industry, the drama of a huge player who still won't come to the party, and a debate over who even gets to be called a proper watchmaker these days.
First up, we've got a bit of a family feud on our hands. So 2026 is Tudor's 100th anniversary. That is a huge deal for them. But the question everyone's asking is, will its bigger, attention-grabbing sibling, Rolex, actually give them the spotlight for once? A lot of people were thinking, okay, Rolex will have a quiet year. Let Tudor have its moment. It makes sense, the crown letting the shield have its day in the sun. But the more you dig into it, the more you realize having a quiet year just isn't really in Rolex's DNA.
And here's exactly why that's probably not going to happen. First, it's also the 100th anniversary of the Oyster case. The word oyster is Rolex. It's their soul. There's no way they let that pass without a massive celebration. Second, the rumors of a new land dweller are getting louder, and if that happens, it would absolutely break the internet. And finally, let's be real. When has Rolex ever been quiet? Even when their releases are boring, the entire world spends the next week talking about how boring they are. They own the conversation. Simple as that.
Okay, next up, let's talk about two of the absolute titans. Two-thirds of the so-called holy trinity of watchmaking, Audemars Piguet and Patek Philippe. And both of them are at this really interesting crossroads, with some big questions about what their future looks like.
So AP is stepping into a totally new era. This is the very first Watches and Wonders with their new CEO, Ilaria Resta, at the helm, and she is already making waves. She's been super clear that the future of the brand isn't just about one single watch model, but about putting high-end, complicated watchmaking into their entire lineup.
And that right there gets to the core of the problem for AP. For so long, the biggest critique from watch nerds has been, yeah, but are they just the Royal Oak Company? This show is their big chance to prove that they're more than that, and that the new CEO's vision is the real deal.
What's so wild is just how differently AP and Patek are playing the game right now. AP is going all in on brand experience. They're spending a fortune on their AP houses to connect with a younger, cooler crowd. They're trying to read the room. Patek, on the other hand, they couldn't care less about being approachable. Their entire strategy is built on psychological scarcity. This idea that to be truly desirable, you have to be almost impossible to get.
But hey, don't write Patek off just yet. They have their own monster anniversary to celebrate, 50 years of the legendary Nautilus. You hear all these whispers that maybe they're losing a bit of their cool factor, and this is their golden ticket to drop a bombshell and remind everybody why they're Patek Philippe.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about who won't be at the show. The elephant not in the room, as always, is the Swatch Group. Their absence is this long-running soap opera in the watch industry, and it's a huge deal.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We're not going to get an official answer, but you just have to wonder, is the biggest watch group in the world feeling any pressure at all? Any fear of missing out? Are they ever going to join the one event that has become the absolute center of the watch universe?
To get why this is such a thing, you got to go back. In 2018, their CEO, Nick Hayek, yanked all 18 of their brands, we're talking giants like Omega and Longines, out of Baselworld, which was the big show back then. That move basically killed Baselworld. But then, in 2022, Watches and Wonders rose from the ashes and became this massive success. And even with open invitations, Swatch Group still says no.
So Hayek's official reasons came down to three things. One, the cost was insane, and the return on that investment just wasn't there. Two, he said big physical trade shows were an old-fashioned idea in the internet age. And three, he wanted the freedom to launch new watches whenever he wanted, not just during 1 week a year.
But here's the kicker. Watches and Wonders works. It works incredibly well. Its success completely proves that the trade show model is not dead. It gets the entire industry, press, retailers, collectors, all focused on one thing for 1 week. So for Swatch Group to keep holding out,
Well, it starts to look less like a smart business decision and more like they're just being petty.
And that leads us perfectly into our last question, which is a bit more philosophical. It really gets to the soul of what the industry is becoming. And the question is, who actually belongs at the table anymore? The whole definition of a proper watchmaker is up for grabs.
You know, one of the coolest things about Watches and Wonders is this sheer variety. You've got these tiny, independent brands making maybe a dozen mind-bendingly complicated watches a year, right next to brands that are way more affordable and accessible. The show really does span the entire spectrum.
But because of that variety, you hear this debate every single year, usually from the, let's say, more stuffy corners of the hobby. People complaining about fashion brands like Chanel or Hermes being there. The argument goes that the show should only be for pure watchmaking. It's just a really narrow-minded view.
And you know what? I couldn't agree more with this quote. I really, really resent that attitude. This idea that you're only a real watchmaker if you only make watches, it's just so limiting, and it means you're ignoring some of the most exciting stuff happening right now.
I mean, just look at what these brands are doing. Last year, Hermes made a watch with a tiny, hand-painted horse sticking its tongue out. It was fun, it was creative, it felt like something from the golden age of whimsical watchmaking. Or look at the Chanel J12 Ottoman with its super complex caliber 6 movement that powers a little automaton of Coco Chanel. These brands are pouring millions into making serious, innovative watches and bringing some much-needed fun to an industry that can be a little pale, male, and stale.
So that leaves us with the biggest question of all. Watches and Wonders isn't just a trade show. It's a battlefield of ideas. It's where the future of this whole industry gets hashed out, and in a world that is so defined by tradition, who actually gets to decide what comes next? That is what we're all waiting to find out.